I remember, I think it was in the late 1980s, maybe the early 1990s, Prunella Scales was in a production in the Queen's Theatre, uh, which has now been renamed the Sondheim, in Shaftesbury Avenue. And it was called Single Spies, I think, and it joined together two short plays by Alan Bennett, and one of them was a question of attribution. And in that play, the Queen appears, and it was a scene at the front of the stage, and this big front drop dropped in with a Buckingham Palace corridor and a giant painting, and Anthony Blunt, who was played, I think, in the play by Alan Bennett himself, was up a ladder, and he says, hand me that thing, please. And the Queen comes in with her corgis and hands him the thing. Come on, quickly. And she says, you must see quite a lot up there. Your Majesty, one sees only what one is meant to see. Yeah, it depends on which way one's looking, doesn't it? Indeed, ma'am, perspective is everything. A picture changes entirely depending on where one stands. Do you think it's a fake? I wouldn't say fake, ma'am. Perhaps attributed. Attribution, after all, is more a matter of faith than certainty. Faith, yes. One wonders where it's best placed these days. In art, perhaps. Art never betrays us, ma'am. It remains constant, even if we change our view of it. Unlike people, then? That's rather beyond my expertise, ma'am. Oh, I think you know more about it than you're letting on, Sir Anthony. And it's a wonderful little scene, but it does rather assume that the Queen was informed that Anthony Blunt was a spy. And now we learn today that the Queen had no idea at all. That throws that rather wonderful play into complete chaos. The head of the nation, the paragon of resilience and discretion, was not told that she had unknowingly employed a Soviet double agent among her most trusted courtiers. Now, Anthony Blunt has been replaced by somebody far more reliable, a fellow called Tim Knox, who had previously been running the museum in Cambridge. And but Anthony Blunt was a slippery individual. And the Queen's ignorance was a reality. It seems almost a decade she remained uninformed of Anthony Blunt's confessed treachery. Why on earth was that? This esteemed art historian, surveyor of the Queen's pictures, overseeing the Royal Art Collection, was a spy. He wasn't an ordinary man, and beneath the patina of scholarly refinement lay a Soviet spy, deeply embedded in the infamous Cambridge spy ring, along with luminaries like Kim Philby, Guy Burgess, Donald Maclean. And Blunt betrayed his country, delivering state secrets to the Soviet Union during and after World War II. In 1964, he confessed to MI5 under immunity, acknowledging his role as a Soviet agent since the 1930s. Yet remarkably, it wasn't until 1973, nearly a decade later, that the Queen was fully and formally informed. So why the delay? A complex web of secrecy, perhaps plausible deniability, fear of scandal. An official sought to protect the monarchy from the fallout of such a revelation, and yet allowed Blunt to remain in the palace. Safer for the Queen to be kept in the dark. When the Queen was eventually briefed by her private secretary, her response was quintessentially Elizabethan, calm, unflappable, with a faint whiff of prescience. According to declassified files, she records suspicions raised about Blunt following the 1951 defections of Burgess and Maclean, suggesting that even in the middle of palace corridors, whispers of duplicity had lingered. But the delay in informing the Queen must be contextualised within the fraught global politics of the Cold War, and British intelligence services, reeling from the betrayals of Burgess and Maclean, were engaged in damage control, but that shouldn't have stopped at the Queen. The defection of Philby in 1963, Blunt's confession, further underscores the pervasive influence of Soviet moles, but the full extent of the Cambridge spy ring's treachery was a national humiliation, eroding public trust in institutions like MI5 and MI6. And Blunt's deception was unique in its audacity and the proximity to the Crown. Even as MI5 interrogated him, he continued his duties within the palace. And it's an incongruity that reflects the peculiar British approach to espionage scandals. It's sort of stiff upper lip and sort of pragmatism and proceduralism. These two things all combine together in privacy. So you cannot discuss Blunt without referencing Kim Philby, the most infamous traitor in the Cambridge Ring, played on screen by Alan Bates, not the Alan Bates from the Horizon scandal, the original Alan Bates, and his interrogation in 1951. The MI5 interrogator Helenas Milmo was as brilliant as Philby's duplicity. It was a pivotal moment. Milmo meticulously laid out the evidence implicating Philby, and Philby's evasive charm ensured his continued masquerade as a loyal servant of the crown. But Philby, like Blunt, epitomised the era's paradox. Individuals operating at the very highest point in our establishment while betraying it with cold precision, and both men leveraged their insider status, exploiting the implicit trust and the discretion of their roles. Blunt's unmasking in 1979 by Thatcher in a common statement was therefore seismic. Stripped of his knighthood, Blunt retreated into obscurity, dying in 1983. But the broader question remains: why shield the Queen for so long? Was there some sort of protective ethos surrounding the monarchy, the desire to manage public perception? Is it that Anthony Blunt had got so close? A scandal, particularly one involving a Soviet espionage, threatened our way of life and threatened our survival. And with Blunt being in the palace itself, it threatened the monarchy's image and the nation's morale during a tense Cold War period. But Anthony Blunt, Kim Philby, it's a cautionary tale of betrayal, secrecy, quiet resilience of an institution like the British monarchy. But to learn that the Queen was not told is shocking. It's shockingly arrogant of the British government circles and the elite institutions, of which the Queen, the monarch, is the head. And if the monarch is denied information, it doesn't say very much for the Queen's diligence in going through the red boxes if the information that she was given has already been filtered and censored. Does it? It makes a mockery of all the hard work she put in and the hard work that her son King Charles is now putting in to those red boxes. It makes a mockery of that effort. And that's really rather sad to learn, I think. Though, of course, it's always nice to celebrate Prunella Scales, and the whoop of delight when she entered the stage. She came on stage from stage right, preceded by, I think, 2 corgis. And there was a whoop. It was a very small scene, and it just shows how brilliant a very small part can be on stage, and how it can be sensational. It's one of the enduring memories that I've got of going to the theatre. Prunella Scales as Queen Elizabeth II with corgis, coming on stage and talking to Anthony Blunt, played, I'm pretty certain, by Alan Bennett. There we are.